me say good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Those of you viewing GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, Channels 20. Good morning to you also and welcome. It's to the point for today, Thursday, the 17th day of October, 2024. And on Thursdays here on To The Point, we do entertain various departments within the RGPF. And I'll be back with Community Relations Department this morning, right? Let me say good morning and welcome, of course, to Inspector Maureen John with us this morning. Inspector, good morning and welcome. Nice to have you back once again.
Morning, GT, and good morning to the viewers and listeners of this program. It's nice to be back with you as well.
All right. Well, it's nice to have you also. This morning's, of course, conversation is going to be a bit of a continuation of last week's program, where we talk a whole lot about violence.
Yes.
But we're going to double down on specific, of course, types of violence this morning. We will double down on that just a wee bit. And just probably get a broader perspective on what we spoke about last week. Last week, interesting having the two officers with me last week. We did talk a whole lot about violence and so forth because it's becoming a cause for concern.
Yes, it is.
You know, in Grenada today, in terms of violence, especially violence among the youth.
Yeah,
you know?
And as I said yesterday, we may be running the risk of sounding like a broken record talking about this again, but I believe that it is a necessary risk because it continues to be a problem and it continues to be something that we wish all Grenadians could become very conscious and very aware of, and not just aware and conscious, but become a participant in the fight to reduce it as much as we can.
You know, it's something that all of us as Grenadians, as you said, you know, have to be, of course, take seriously, because it not only affects the victims alone, but you know, the entire family. Somehow gets involved some way or the other because individuals may lose their lives, you know, maiming may occur, and it becomes an inconvenience to other members of the family because they know to offer assistance. Now, I sort of changing the pattern just a wee bit because we're on that particular trend. We saw this week in the news there was an issue taking place in a particular school where, you know, the escalation of a particular violent incident took place. It's not the kind of thing we want to hear going on in our schools.
Of course not.
Schools are for learning, and you know...
And it's supposed to be a safe place.
And it's supposed to be a safe haven for, you know, parents. I said, well, you know, I send my daughter to school. I know they should be safe wherever they're at. And we should not have to worry about violence taking place in school. Let's hear from you, Inspector, in terms, and of course, the Community Relations Department. You have a level of seniority there. Tell us about the concerns that you folks are having as relation to that. Violence as relation to schools and so forth as it stands right now.
I think one of the major concerns for us is that the violence perpetrated in schools are not necessarily from incidents or situations that were brought about as a result of being in school.
Okay.
What we're seeing is a transference of incidents that happen within the community to the school, which is sad. Because as we said earlier, the school is supposed to be a safe environment, a place where students are mindful about learning and maybe even helping their peers to learn. Yeah. But instead what we're seeing is our acts of violence, which in our opinion are unnecessary and situations that could be rectified otherwise instead of turning into acts of violence. And what we're seeing too, what is concerning for us too, is not just the physical violence, but the fact that our young people verbally abuse their peers. And not just that, but we are concerned too about the levels of cyberbullying that we have, where our young people are using social media and other means, electronic means, to bully their peers.
Yeah.
So that is concerning for us too, that while yes, some of the incidents of violence involve cases where maybe a little thing happened in the school, like let's take a recess situation into consideration. So somebody may have something in their hand, somebody inadvertently knocks it down, that may end up into a little spat.
Yes.
And of course, if it's not controlled early enough, then it could escalate into something bigger. And if it is still not managed properly, then it could extend into days instead of just being a one-off incident. So these happen. And what is at the what is the bottom line? Poor conflict management and poor conflict resolution. So it seems as though our young people do not know how to exercise that little bit of patience with their peers. The way they see to react, a lot of times, it starts with words first. And some of the words that come out in the very beginning are sometimes shocking.
I know.
They're laced with threats and abuses. And
there's a saying that sometimes the words an individual will tell you is more than being hit by a stick sometimes.
And it is amazing how quick you listen to their interactions on the street, on the bus terminals, in places where they gather. And their language is so violent. It's always about, I will do you this and I will do you that. And you wonder why is that the first things to come to the tip of their tongues? And then, of course, if those words are not controlled, then they could turn into actions. And that's what we see happening a lot of times. So somebody knocked down something, somebody mashed you inadvertently, and the next thing you know, there is a brawl, there is a fight, there is something happening.
All right. My next question leads to the RGPF. What are some of the plans? Conversation like this is a start. You come, of course, speak and some hope that we get the parents involved to speak to their sons and daughters in relation to this. But what are some of the key plans that the RGPF have to put a curve on these incidents that are occurring, especially within the schools?
Right. So last week, my colleagues were here, and I believe they spoke about the campaign against violence that from our department that we have launched. But this is not just a community relations issue, It is the entire Royal Grenada Police Force. That is why we are back here this morning, actually, because the High Command sees it as something that is concerning and something that we should continue to shed the spotlight on. So throughout our police force right now, there is this drive. So in the Eastern Division last week, from the superintendent in charge of the division, right down to the constable level, they were at schools in the Eastern Corridor, spreading the message about anti-bullying tactics and speaking to conflict resolution and conflict management, and that was done both at the secondary and primary school level.
Okay.
During this week, too, they're also having some interactions in the Eastern Corridor. They're involving the police band to add a little bit of entertainment to the packages. And they're spreading the message of anti-bullying tactics and so on. So it is not just localized to the Community Relations Department, St. George's, but it is something that is spreading throughout the RGPF, because we believe that if we can make a dent, we may not be able to end the situation, we may not be able to bring an end to it, but if we could make a dent, if we could cause one young person to become more conscious about their actions, if we could cause one young person to stop and think before they act, then we think that we would make a serious dent into the problem. So our campaign down here has been ongoing. We've targeted certain schools and the officers are going in there. We're going farm by farm in some instances, spreading the message. We've also targeted certain communities where officers go in. We partner with members of the community and we spread that message out as well. There are some communities where you would hear responses like, well, we're not really a violent community. We don't really have violence happening in this community. But people usually see just the physical violence and the fighting and all that. But it starts with our thoughts.
So true.
And then it becomes our words sometimes before it becomes our actions. And when we look at our crime maps, we realize that threatening language is a big thing. In a lot of our divisions, at the end of the week, when you add up your statistics, threatening language overrides every other complaint that is made to the police. So if we are so full of rage that we have to be threatening persons all the time like that, we didn't see that as violence yet because nothing physical has happened. But that is a form of violence as well. Right. The words that you use against another person.
Isn't there a law that comes up against these threatening languages?
Yes, there is.
Because we see people have individuals now has become to a point where it's been done freely as without care.
Yes.
Individuals are walking the street, folks are driving, and probably there's a mishap in driving, and someone will put their head out of the vehicle and make these insults to you and so forth. Concerns on those levels.
And it is very concerning. And there are a lot of persons who are of the opinion that these language offences should no longer form part of our legislation. But I humbly submit that when our forefathers put these laws in place, they were thinking about a peaceful society where persons have respect for each other. I think that's what they were trying to protect. So are we saying that this is not necessary anymore, that it should just be a free-fall, and because it happens in other countries, it should be the same way in Grenada? And
it leads to my next question, because we think about the influences that has caused a whole lot on our society right now. The influx of social media,
yes,
and the television programs that individual watches in these other countries, where the use of these insulting languages like everyday conversations. You understand? But for us in our little neck of the woods, it was not that it was supposed to be.
Exactly.
We understand times have changed.
Yeah.
Times have changed. Things will no longer be the same. But we cannot always allow other cultures to influx on us so much that we become like them, and then we lose what really belongs to who we really were as a people.
That's right. And it is appalling that some parents would even allow their small children to use that kind of language and get a big joke out of it.
And just pass it over like nothing.
And just pass it over like nothing, with no form of correction or anything. And when we reach that level, then I believe that it is a very, very sad state for us to be in. But I always like to see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to...
What's that like? What is that like?
When it comes to these kind of behaviors. Because, honestly, the students who engage in those behaviors are in a minority. They're not the majority.
Yeah.
And while it is alarming when you go to the court on a juvenile day, you see so many of them waiting for their cases to be heard, but they're still in the minority.
Yeah.
And what we do not want is for that sort of behavior to become the majority. We don't want them to be the majority. And I believe that we still have a grip, and what we need to do is to strengthen it so that it does not get something that is out of control. How do we do that? We engage in the strategies that we are engaging now. But it does not take just the Royal Grenada Police Force. It has to become something that every Grenadian decides, I'm going to see what role I can play in this battle. Somebody said, I am putting my life at risk for nobody, child. Meaning that if they see a fight happening, they won't try to get in the middle and try to separate the individuals.
And they will take their phones out.
Exactly.
And record it.
They would take their phones out and they would record and then they would post it on social media so that the rest of the world will see that this is what Grenada is like, which is sad.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. And I'm saying, I'm not asking you to risk your life, as you put it, for somebody's child. But as adults, sometimes I think we turn a blind eye too much to these situations. Yeah. It happens in the backyard. It happens on the street in front of the house. It happens, and even sometimes when the fights start, usually sometimes there are no weapons involved. But these young people have enough time to go home sometimes, get a weapon and come back.
And then it escalates. So it's a form of premeditation there now. You left and then you come back.
What happens within that period of time? They're not thinking. They're angry, they're enraged. But if somebody else steps in, what all this anger is about? And there are people who witness all the time.
And will do nothing to diffuse the situation.
Do nothing to diffuse the situation. That's why I applaud people who still take initiatives to do such. And I'll give you an example. Last week, somewhere in the Western Division, a homemaker stayed at home and observed a child going to school in a state that was not normal. The child was crying, but there is a difference between a cry when you're in pain.
You don't want to go to school.
And then there is a cry when you're angry.
Yes.
He was crying, but it was a cry out of anger. Mm-hmm. And she felt something was not right with this situation. She called ahead. So even before the student got to school, the principals knew that he was coming to school in that state. When they checked him out, he had a weapon in his bag, a cutlass to be exact.
Oh boy.
And his plan was to exact revenge on a student who offended him during the week.
Oh boy.
That was his plan for going to school that day, to exact revenge. He was already very angry. He was crying on the road to school because he's so angry. And this is what his plan was. When was he going to do it? Maybe soon as he got there, because he was already angry. But that person called, and it's a very good thing that that person did. So the principal and so were alerted, and they were able to diffuse the situation even before he got started.
Well, of course, we could see much more individuals doing that.
And that's what we applaud, and that's what we want to see.
But before we take that break, I wanted to ask this question. It may sound a little bit off, but, you know, sometimes examples have to be made for other people, for other individuals, especially the young people today, to, of course, to get their minds thinking, well, these are the if I do this, I do this, this is the problems I could run into. You know, so I was saying maybe some examples of, you know, youngsters getting themselves in a particular institution, maybe not they sent to prison or anything of the sort, but some halfway house or something that we could say that could have them straighten themselves up. And if numerous individuals or youngsters find themselves going there, it could be a way of slowing down. What's your take on that?
I believe that there are different remedies for different situations, and for me, every case has to be treated on its own merit. Mm-hmm. So the young men who were involved in the fight at the learning institution last week, they were arrested by the police.
Yes.
Right? They're no longer juveniles based on their age. They're now adults, so they would not go to a juvenile court. So they would go to the regular court, and of course it is up to the magistrate, based on the evidence before him or her, the sentence that would be given to these young persons. So there are some where the institution would work, but there are others where I believe sometimes community service and so works too. Okay. You get them to pay back something to the community as a result of their behavior. Mm-hmm. There are other cases where they put into programs where they learn how to manage and control their anger and things like that. I believe these things work too, because if you examine a lot of these programs, you would realize that there are success stories. There are young men and young women who go through those programs, and they are success stories.
They have turned themselves around.
The bad thing is, though, we don't hear about these all the time. We hear about the negative side of the situation, but we don't hear when there are positive outcomes. And I think sometimes we need to invest time to hear about those positive outcomes and talk to those young people who are sometimes now adults, but they went through a program like that and are now changed. They have a better mindset. They handle things differently. I think we need to invest time hearing those stories sometimes too.
And it'd be nice if we could have those individuals who may have gone through those programs and hear their stories. Could have a big influence on the youngsters who are given those problems.
Yes,
today.
That's right.
Of course. Inspector John, we drew for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, we, of course, continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. We will be right back.
The Agricultural Shop at the Renick Thompson Building on the Carna St. George's is the ideal place for your agricultural items. Start your garden today with the best from the Agricultural Shop. Get your seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, gardening equipment, and more from the Agricultural Shop on the Carna.
Grenada is invited to be a part of the National Heroes Day commemoration on Saturday, October 19th, 2024 at Progress Park in St. Andrew from 9:30 a.m. to 12 midday. National Heroes Day will be commemorated under the theme Unity in commemorating our heroes, past, present, and future. Speakers at the National Heroes Day commemoration will include the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, and the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. An exciting and entertaining cultural package will form part of the celebrations. Organize your groups now and let's make this a most memorable event in recognition of the sacrifices and achievements of our national heroes. Free transportation will be provided. National Heroes Day Commemoration 2024, Saturday, October 19th, Progress Park in St. Andrew.
Western Union, the best little liquor store, Gittins Healthcare Pharmacies, Rise and Shine Supermarket, and Captain Harris Apartments, proud partners of the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m.
Grenada, get ready to celebrate the magic of the season with Christmas with GBN. Starting November 4th, join us weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN Television, K105 and Hot 98. Monday kicks off with traditional stories and wellness, featuring a storytelling session with Labukan Creative Center, giveaways, nutrition tips, and live calls to share your holiday wishes. On Tuesday brings Craft Day with live and pre-recorded workshops guided by local artisans. Join us for more giveaways and connect through live calls. Wednesday features an outdoor production showcase, giving local sponsors a chance to shine from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. On Thursday, it highlights a local cuisine showcase at True Blueberry Resort. And on Friday, it wraps up the week with live entertainment in our studio, showcasing local artists and
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, our viewers. Those of you of our social media platforms, good morning to you also, whether it's a YouTube channels, I should say, good morning. Facebook page, good morning. Welcome back to The Point for today, Thursday, the 17th day of October, 2024. With us this morning, we have Inspector Maureen John with us this morning. We're talking violence this morning. And our reason for her being here this morning is because of the recent spike we see taking place in terms of youngsters getting themselves involved in these violent activities. That is just no good. You know, in a simple way of saying it, it's just no good for our side. It shows no good way for them in terms of their learning process also.
Of course, yes.
And of course, it makes no example for the young individuals who may have a younger brother or younger sister who may look up at them and listen to or sometime at home they hear those violent conversations that are taking place also.
And we need to talk about that. The fact that home plays such a critical role in the life of a child. Mm-hmm. And I think it is well established now that a child's first learning and everything takes place at home.
So true.
And what foundation is set for a child would tell a lot about what this child becomes in the future, unless there are the necessary interventions to help this child to change their path. Mm. But what we find happening in many homes when we investigate together with our other social partners and so on, when you take a case, when you go on a case-by-case basis and you call in parents and you call in guardians and so on, and there are cases where parents and guardians would bluntly say, I am not going to that meeting. I am not going to that case conference, even though it concerns your child being involved in an act of violence.
Their lack of interest.
School. And that lack of interest, you see, sometimes it scares you. Because you wonder what goes on behind closed doors in that household. Whether or not there are any rules and boundaries and whether or not there's any kind of discipline at all. Because when a parent would just say to you, the principal also inform them, we have a meeting, your child is going to be there, the other child is going to be there, we have the police, we have whoever, and you would bluntly say you're not coming. I mean, that speaks volumes. And I feel sorry for children in situations like that because it means that there is hardly any guidance, there is hardly any parental control, And in most cases, daddy is not there either. And while we have cases now that are overwhelmingly perpetuated by boys, we realize that our girls are not exempt either. They get involved in acts of violence too. Sometimes the causes are different from the boys, but they do become involved in acts of violence. And when you see the non-involvement of parents and the disinterest from parents, it causes you to be very, very concerned for this child in particular and for the other children who may occupy that household. And I don't know how much more as a nation we can emphasize the fact that parents ought to be a part of their child's life. And I think the Child's Month theme this year is so apt, speaking to parents more or less, saying,
yes.
You are my child, you are my priority. But do we see that priority happening sometimes? Sadly, no. There are many children who cannot relate well to this theme because they don't believe that they are a priority to their parents. And sometimes that's why they act out violently, because they don't feel loved, they don't feel cared for, they don't feel valued by the people who are supposed to make them feel that way. And it's something that needs to be fixed. How do we fix it? That's a whole other question on its own. How do we get parents to be responsible? How do we get parents to step up and say, I am responsible for bringing this human life into the world. No, I have to take responsibility for what happens to this human life.
You know, let me ask you, you did mention the home, and we understand, everybody will say everything starts at home. But where does the breakdown actually takes place besides the home? That breakdown where these youngsters find themselves getting involved in those, the mindset and the tendency to be violent. Yes, the home is, we know that the parents need to offer them the guidance and so forth. The discipline starts at home from the start. But where does that breakdown continues from?
Influence. A lot of it is influence. And there are community influencers. There are influencers at school. There are the influencers in media. There are the influence. I mean, everywhere you turn, our children are being influenced by something. They're always plugged in these days, and what they're listening to, God knows what. I took a headphone from a youngster once. He wasn't paying attention, so he didn't realize that that's what I was doing. He didn't have time cut off the device. And when I heard what was coming through those headphones,
the lyrical content of the songs or whatever he was listening to,
I just had to shake my head. I was sitting in a public place again recently. A youngster was coming by, all of them have their Bluetooth speakers now. So it's not just music for them, it's for everybody now. I mean, when I was small, I used to see those guys walking around with the big cassette tape players on their shoulders and all that. Now they have their little Bluetooth speakers and they're playing music for everybody to hear. And the young man walked past me, and when I heard the lyrics, it was actually telling a young person what to do if you want to kill somebody. And I'm like, how can these things even be sold to be played? How can these things even be accessible so that our young people can listen to them? And these are where the influences are. They want to be like that person. They want to be like this musician and this artist. And I don't know if our artists realize the level of influence that they have. I think they know, but they just don't care sometimes. Because it's all about just getting the followers and getting the following, and whatever gets them that fame, that's what they're going to continue to do. And then they would say, well, I didn't tell them to follow me. I didn't tell them to listen to my music, or whatever the case may be. But you have to realize that young people are like that. Yeah.
I sometimes worry about the benefits that you get from it, especially from the music that they listen to. Yes, that particular artist may be benefited financially.
Yes,
you understand?
But what do you benefit?
But you, as a listener of that particular individual's music, sometimes you benefit zero. You understand?
Zero.
And sometimes by you going to social media and playing their songs and listening to it at the length of time and how many times you click on that song, it pays them. It pays that individual.
Exactly.
With no return to you as an individual.
What it does is that it implants things into your mind. Things, and even subconsciously, things, you listen to things, and they stay with you after a while. You find yourself repeating certain things.
Exactly.
And it's because you've been listening to them for so long. And then what happens? Our thoughts become our actions.
And then we get clogged it and then no longer thinking
our thoughts become our actions. Listen to our young people, how they speak GT. Sometimes you don't know they're Grenadians because their accents are so switched up. They sound like Jamaicans, they sound like Vincentians, they sound like everybody else but an authentic Grenadian. And that's because they are so heavily influenced by what they listen to.
My next question to ask you, the role that society has to play is to curve this. The role of society, it's also as important. The role of the regular individuals in the communities and so forth. Even there are always individuals in society who possess that leadership quality about themselves. But sometimes they don't put themselves out to help the situation.
Yeah.
How can society help a whole lot? Those regular areas that you know are trouble spots and so forth. There are individuals who could influence things differently and they don't.
Yeah.
Maybe you could offer an appeal to these individuals. Let's hear what you in terms of the role of
it's
society.
important because, as I said earlier, the police force, the Royal Grenada Police Force alone cannot make a significant enough dent into a situation like this one. There are communities where there are influencers, and I believe we have influencers who are not even aware that they are influencers, but they are influencing our young people. I like to talk about the ones that they gravitate towards, the soca artists and so on.
All right.
Our local soca artists and so on. Are they doing enough to help to break these trends? Listen, I look at our young people's behavior when these soca artists and so get on stage. When I don't attend these events myself, I see little clips and so here and there. And they actually command the attention of these young people fully. They ask them to move in one direction, they move. They ask them to mash up something, they mash up something. They ask them to shake down something, they shake down something. That's the kind of influence they have over our young people. And I believe that this influence can be used to help our young people to reduce the incidence of violence that we're having.
Can you think the RGPF could use these particular artists?
Well, yes, of course.
Who have those influence on people to probably have them come out and have a particular campaign where they speak to them about being more positive?
We have had discussions like these. We have had discussions, and we have plans in place to do some forums like that. And it's not just about these artists, but it's the other persons like you sometimes, GT, the broadcasters.
For me.
And the broadcasters and the DJs that the young people listen to as well. They're very influential. Very, very influential over the lives of our young people. Do they accept that and use the platforms that they have to spread a message of positivity, or do they hype them up and gas them up? And
well, there are individuals who do, because of as it goes back as we said before, the type of music they play.
Yes.
The kind of information that they disperse when these songs are played.
The things they say
also
to our young people when our young people log into their platforms and so on. All these are influences. And I said that yesterday, and it sounded comical, but that's true. When I was a child, I believed that everything that was said on the radio was the truth.
Okay.
Well, it was said on the radio, so it has to be true.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are people who are still of that kind of mindset, but that's the kind of influence that, because people consider people who hold these positions to be holders of truth and to be persons who are going to lead you correctly. Now, let me give this example. I was listening to a particular radio. I was on the bus. I didn't have a choice. And a young man called into the station and said to the broadcaster, "Watch, I had a kind of day today. Right now I come home, I'm feeling real down and thing, I don't even know how I'm feeling right now. Those kind of expressions." And I'm waiting to hear what the broadcaster would say to him, because to me, that's an excellent opportunity to speak some positivity into the life of a person and motivate them.
Yes.
And the broadcaster said to the young man, "Maybe you didn't drink enough alcohol today. Go buy a 6-pack of a particular alcoholic beverage, drink it, and then come back and call me. Drink all, and then come back and call me." That was the response of the broadcaster. And in my head, I'm thinking, how much more irresponsible can we be? And that young man could have been just one person, but there might be somebody else listening who was feeling the same kind of way. And whatever you said to this individual would have helped that one too. And I think sometimes people who are in positions of influence don't use their platforms enough to try to help to reach the young person. Influential people in communities, we have retirees. But what we hear a lot these days is, I don't want to get involved. I prefer to keep myself safe, because the young people these days are disrespectful and they're what. But sometimes it just starts with having a simple conversation with a young person, not in the heat of an incident. But just having the young person has that kind of tendency because you've heard their name calling in the community, being with the bad squad or whatever. A simple conversation on a normal day. How you're doing, what's up with you, what's really going on with you. Befriending somebody and offering to mentor somebody too, because some of them lack mentorship, they lack coaching, they lack training. There has been no structure in their lives, and just one person trying to make an input could make a big difference. But
Inspector, sometimes the issue too why you find most of these individuals not wanting to get involved, most of these youngsters are not approachable. You know what I mean? To approach them, sometimes it's scary for you, especially as an elderly individual. You thinking, or you just listen to how they speak. I had a family member once come to Grenada and said he feels more scared to be in Grenada than in the U.S. Wow. Because all he's seen is people walking around with a cutlass. And he said, not that there's not violence there, but most times, for years, you may never see someone walking with a cutlass freely in the road. You understand? I kind of laugh when he said, but then I understand what he said, because you may be in the U.S. or some other country in the country, but you don't see someone walking with a cutlass just freely that anywhere you go. And he was saying he's walking through town, and he see a gentleman just walking through town with a cutlass swinging, not even wrapped. So sometimes approaching individuals to have a conversation with them may be the problem.
That's why I said on a normal day. Not on a day when they seem to be in the heat of a something. But again, you're right. Some of them, even on a normal day, you look at them and their faces always look as though there is something going on. Like they always look angry. They always look as though something is happening. But I encourage us, because we keep talking about the fact we've gone past this stage where it takes a village to raise a child. But how do we get back there? Can we get back there? Is it necessary for us to get back to that kind of lifestyle? I believe so, because no man is an island. Everybody needs somebody at some point. The problem is that sometimes when people pay attention is when a situation has gone out of control and not at the point where there are still things that can be done to fix the problem before it escalates. So I think there are things that we can do in our corners that can help.
All right. We're due for a break. We'll be our final break on the program this morning. And when we come back, we invite some calls from our listeners and viewers. If you do have a contribution to make, you feel free to do it after the break. Stay with us. Don't touch it out. We will be right back.
As we get ready. Grenada is invited to be a part of the National Heroes Day commemoration on Saturday, October 19th, 2024 at Progress Park in St. Andrew from 9:30 a.m. to 12 midday. National Heroes Day will be commemorated under the theme Unity in commemorating our heroes, past, present, and future. Speakers at the National Heroes Day commemoration will include the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, and the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. An exciting and entertaining cultural package will form part of the celebrations. Organize your groups now and let's make this a most memorable event in recognition of the sacrifices and achievements of our national heroes. Free transportation will be provided. National Heroes Day Commemoration 2024, Saturday, October 19th, Progress Park in St. Andrew.
Bryden and Miners, Rennick Thompson and Company Limited, Spice Isle Imaging Center, Springs Food Mart, and Blue Bubbles PA Rental and Event Supplies. Proud partners of the 18th Annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m.
Grenada, get ready to celebrate the magic of the season with Christmas with GBN. Starting November 4th, join us weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN Television, K105 and Hot 98. Monday kicks off with traditional stories and wellness, featuring a storytelling session with Labukan Creative Center, giveaways, nutrition tips, and live calls to share your holiday wishes. On Tuesday, brings Craft Day with live and pre-recorded workshops guided by local artisans. Join us for more giveaways and connect through live calls. Wednesday features an outdoor production showcase, giving local sponsors a chance to shine from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. On Thursday, it highlights a local cuisine showcase at True Blueberry Resort. And on Friday, it wraps up the week with live entertainment in our studio, showcasing local artists and more opportunities for live calls. Don't miss out on the joy and togetherness this holiday season. Celebrate with us on Christmas with GBN.
Welcome back once again to our listeners and viewers to the Point Classic Radio GBN TV. As mentioned before the break, I'll give you the opportunity, those of you listeners and viewers out there, to calling and ask a question, make a contribution towards the program. Maybe a question you may want to ask, of course, Inspector John. Feel free to do so in this segment. Let's take our first caller via WhatsApp. Good morning to you, caller, and you're live.
Good morning, Mr. GT, and good morning, Inspector. Thank you so much for your efforts and for the efforts of the police force. You touch on a great topic today, and I think solving the problem is actually a Herculean task. You mentioned about parents sometimes not showing any interest in corrective measures, in improving, in coming to a meeting, to hear what the child did and to try to make some improvement in that regard. I think one thing that we have to strongly consider is that sometimes the parents need parenting themselves, and when that kind of attitude of the parents may indicate that they're at wit's end themselves and may actually be a cry for help. Sometimes when people show no interest, it may actually be, and I repeat myself, a cry for help. So my question to you, in addition to approaching the children who are SEMA minors, is there anything in place to address social service intervention as far as the parents themselves are concerned? Because, we have to remember that the environment helped to shape a child, and a child spends presumably most of the time at home. And the other thing we have to look at, we can't have our cake and eat it at the same time. And I think, when you look at the kind of lyrics and so on that go along, that we find on the airways and that are promoted on the airways, all those things kind of normalize those kind of behavior. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and I think that we cannot ignore the parents, and it's not just talking about they unwilling to show any support or try to solve the children problem, but they may actually need intervention themselves. So I like to see something being done in that regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate your contribution this morning. And the caller did make some interesting points.
And I agree with his point of view too. The sad thing is, though, GT, and you would hear that at almost every school you attend, whether it's to do PTA meetings or, because we do that too, we share with parents, not just children. Mm-hmm. And the principals will tell you the same thing. The parents who you really want to be there, they do not show up. And I agree with the caller that some of them, in some cases, maybe it's a cry for help. And there are agencies that we work along with, governmental agencies, who offer this kind of support. There are parenting classes that are done just sometime late. No, earlier this year, actually, there were some forums that were put on by the Ministry of Social Development and so on. Again, the parents that you really want to be there, will they do that? Will they come out into a public forum like that? But to parents who believe that they do not want to access this kind of public help, you can make a call. You can call and speak with someone yourself and say, listen, I am struggling with my child. My daughter seems to be developing a violent trait, or my son seems to be leaning on the side of violence and I need some help. Mm-hmm. So you can call us as police and we can direct you, or you can feel free to call the other agencies like the Ministry of Social Development and so on, and you can get assistance.
Okay. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning, you're live.
Yes, good morning to GT and the officer. Well, that caller before said it all. That is in that line I was calling to see what can be done to help strengthen the parenting in this country, because we all know two people brought a child into, they don't have to continue to have a relationship, but they both should be made responsible for the child. So the officer kind of browse over it, and most times the father is absent. No, we want to stop accepting that. We want to make sure that something is in place for the police to go find the other parent and bring the two parents. It is too unfair that, single parent most time is accepted. The term single parent is accepted. And so if the mother alone comes, people feel, well, that's okay. Is the mother you living with? No. We want to reach a place where the police must go and find the missing parent and have the two people answer the question. Until then, we will continue to have parents not taking their responsibility seriously. Those of us who grew up in the 60s know our parents used to tell us, children, behave yourselves. You're going to make the police come for me. Well, why has that changed now? We know of days with innocent Belma when he would not accept certain things, but of course that was labeled by the opposition politicians as the worst thing that could have happened in Grenada. However, we need to hear, as I say, we need to hear that we stop taking it for granted that it's okay for one parent. And the police can help. The police can, with their investigatory powers, can find the other parent. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
I wish we could reach the point where we would see that single-parent households do not exist. I wish fathers could step up and pay more attention with what's happening with their boys in particular. And I sometimes believe, though, that some of the fathers and some of the parents that we have, it's better that the children do not have a relationship with them because of the kind of lifestyles that they lead themselves, and that if there are other gentlemen in society who can mentor these boys, it would be better sometimes than having their own biological fathers around. So it is a give and take. Sometimes it's a good thing to have them around, and then sometimes because of the kind of lifestyles they lead, it's best if they're not around too. So, as I said earlier in the presentation, every case needs to be treated on its merit. And the bottom line is that we want to find what is in the best interest of the young person.
Okay. Caller, good morning. You're welcome on your line.
Hi. Good morning to you, GT, and to the officer. I didn't get her name, but a very, very good program, and I like the approach The problem we have defined it. Solution, I do not know. One of them, of course, is the anger of these young people. They come from homes where their mothers are angry, where they have been abandoned and left at the deep end because there's no support. A lot of these boys, especially, they come into the school angry, very, very angry and frustrated. And another thing that goes along with it is the lack of respect and the verbal abuse. They get it at home too. I have mothers telling children how their mother made them, I mean, this is just unbelievable. But you hear mothers cursing kids. Your mother this and your mother that, and that's the mother speaking. So we have that verbal abuse. Someone is already very angry coming from home, and they bang somebody, and the person starts throwing back words at them. And I don't know what we're going to do about this verbal abuse in this country. I mean, I grew up knowing that people respected other people's mothers. And when somebody told you about your mother, it was something very, very hurtful. But today it seems as though it is just accepted widely. But it hurts. As I said before on this book, anyone who curses my mother, I'll never have a word to say to them again in life as long as both of us live. Because my mother meant so much to me. I respect her so much. And when you just bang somebody and they curse your mother, or you and your friend in a bar and you're drinking, and something happens, you trip over him, or you say something and he starts cursing your mother. That's how friends end up killing friends. Because they already have anger. Someone is abusing them verbally. And then they just they hit out. So we have to be, I don't know, it's such a difficult situation. I don't know, we can recommend the church, but can the church reach these people? Most of them, they don't go to the church, and the church has to come to them. We can pray. But the police, as we said, probably could be more forceful with these fathers, as my caller said previously. But this is a very, very very, very difficult situation. Anger plus disrespect amongst the violence. Sad. Heaven help us as a country. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. Have a good morning yourself, and thank you. The caller did say a whole lot there.
Yes. And it reinforces a lot of the things that we said earlier. The verbal abuse, we don't see it as violence, but it is an act of violence.
Yes.
And when something is said to you constantly over and over, and as the caller said, sometimes they hear it in the morning before they go to school, the last thing they heard was some hurtful words and so on. Why wouldn't they be angry? And why wouldn't they take that anger out on somebody else? So we could try to run away from it, but our homes have a lot of work to do in terms of helping to raise our children well.
Okay, we do have a final caller that we're going to accept for the morning. Caller, good morning, you're live.
Good morning.
Yes, caller, go right ahead, please.
Good. Okay, so I am Dr. Williams, and I've developed a program called Mental Peace, where I help adults, children, everyone who attempts or thinks of suicide or deal with trauma, stress, and depression. And I have been in the school system for over 30 years, yeah? So everything that is being said there even needs some more juice added to it. Because the real challenge is, I'll tell you quickly, there's someone who became a vagrant because he was told he was good for nothing, and nothing he would come out. So he chose to become that person. So you may think that is the child alone, but if we leave out the parents, I think the focus needs to be on parents and how we can help them. Go to the parents, not just the child. Because the parents need the help, they're not saying it. They are the ones that are destroying, shaping, molding, and the children are absorbing what comes out of their mouth, their actions, their energy. So we need to start. I'm willing to assist, to help in any way possible, that we can strengthen the mindset of the adults so that they can shape the children. But too much emphasis is being placed on the children who are not getting that strong support from the adults. So we need to take it top down to help shape the parents who can help shape the mindset of the children. And I'll tell you finally, in my community where I grew up, there's a gentleman who enjoyed every child, a female child in his family. Everyone. No matter what, nobody intervened. No matter what happened. I grew up in my own family where I see my brothers abused by nieces and nothing happened. When you reach out, so it's kind of a crazy, right? It's kind of a crazy. So the community policy need to wake up some more so you could get more information. I'm going to pause here, but I'm willing to help. Look up mentalpeace.org and check me so that I can assist in shaping the mindset.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much, and very relevant points there from the caller.
Yeah, and we've touched both areas, though. We spoke about the fact that parents need to be more involved and all that, and that some of our parents, yes, they're frustrated. Some of them are just reacting themselves to their environment and to their situations. But the good thing is that there are persons who are willing to help, and we welcome that. And as much as it's possible, we encourage others to come on board and not just make it something where young people see it as though police trying to steal their joy or to make them put them into straitjackets and all that. But let it be a nationwide effort where everybody comes on board, so our young people realize that, people are concerned about them and people want to ensure that they live out their full potential. Okay. We want a future that is good. We want a future that is bright, so we have to help them.
All right. I mean, the youngsters are our future.
They are.
Yeah. So, of course, if we don't curve them now, you know what's going to happen later on in the year.
They're going to be the next GTs and the next...
So true.
Yes.
So true.
So,
Inspector John, I want to thank you a whole lot for being here this morning and sharing information. Of course, I know it's basically just an extension of what we did last week, but it certainly, of course, was important that we speak about this, because it's becoming a problem.
It is.
It's becoming a problem, and if it's not, some serious intervention is not taken right now, we're going to see, of course, our youngsters go down a drain that we don't want them to go down at all.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you once again, and thanks for being on the program.
Yes, you're welcome.
Right. Hey, folks, that's it. We take a wrap for this edition of To The Point for today, Thursday, the 17th of October. Join me again tomorrow for another edition. Have yourself a great day, folks. That's where we say goodbye. All the best.